Excuse me, sir. Would you have a moment to talk about the psychedelic and enlightened mushroom known as Jesus Christ? I guess I'll tell you guys instead. Now, if someone came to your front door saying this, you'd probably have the same reaction. You would think they were some kind of crazy hippie trying to sell you some mushrooms. But believe it or not, there are a lot of ancient historians and religious scholars who believe this exact same theory, that the story of Jesus Christ is just an encrypted message from the psychedelic experience of doing mushrooms. This was popularized by John Marco Allegra. Allegra was an ordained minister who was selected to translate the Dead Sea Scrolls. Through his 14 years of studying, he came up with the conclusion that religion is based off the concept of people tripping on mushrooms. He was able to trace back the origins of Jesus to a Sumerian translation of a mushroom covered in God's semen. God's semen was considered the rain. When it rained, mushrooms would appear. When people consumed these mushrooms, they started having psychedelic visions of God. Jesus was the mushroom created from the seed of God, and through his flesh and blood you can receive enlightenment of God. The Holy Grail was nothing but a mushroom filled with rainwater. All this was lost in translation from trying to hide this information from the Romans. Allegro stated, the origins of the New Testament were a device to spread the rites of mushroom worship to the faithful. Jesus in the gospel was code for Amanita muscaria. Christianity is nothing but a religion that involves the use of psychedelic plants as a way to access the divine mystery. Now, what's interesting about all this is that the Vatican cut the rights to the book and made it unavailable. They destroyed his career and credibility. Now, could this have been because he went against their narrative? There are many different references to psychedelic usage in ancient cultures and religion. You just have to know what you're searching for and how to take the interpretation. In the book of Exodus, the Israelites become hungry. They've been in the woods for over 40 years. God gives them this bread, which is called manna. Manna is a derivative of the Aramaic word manhu, which means, what is it? They have no idea what they're eating right now. Exodus 16:14 states, and the dew that lay was gone up. Behold, upon the face of the wilderness, a small round thing, small as the hoarfrost on the ground. 16:15, and when the children of Israel saw it, they said to one another, what is it? For they knew not what it was. And Moses said unto them, it is the bread which Jehovah hath given you to eat. 16:19, Moses said to them, let no man leave it till morning. 16:20, it bred worms and became foul. Now this sounds exactly like mushrooms that were left in manure that grew worms. Manna is also referenced in John 6:53 through 57, and it states, whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise them up at the last day. For my flesh is real food and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me and I in them. Just as the living Father sent me and I live because of the Father, so that the ones who feed on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from the heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died, but whoever feeds on this bread will live forever. Now, I highly doubt Jesus was referring to cannibalism in this. It's also ironic that a holiday that's based off of Jesus' presumed birthday has mushroom symbolism planted all over it. Santa is depicted red and white, which is symbolic for the Amanita muscaria mushroom. This mushroom brings gifts of euphoric states of consciousness, and like gifts, they are found beneath pine trees in Siberia. The snowfall in northern Siberia during the winter is so heavy that ground level access is nearly impossible. This is why many homes are built with roof access. Shamans had a tradition of dressing up like the red and white pattern of the Amanita muscaria mushroom. It is also noted that the shaman's holistic practices were banned, hence why they would sneak onto the roof to deliver medicine and gifts. They were healers and knew the power of the mushroom and used the mushroom as medicine. Shamans traveled through the forest in sleighs that were pulled by reindeer. Reindeer are common in Siberia and northern Europe. The male reindeer loved the Amanita muscaria mushroom. Biologists who studied the fungi suggest Siberian tribesmen who ingested the mushroom may have hallucinated the grazing reindeer were flying. Rudolph is another example of mushroom imagery. His bright red nose looks exactly like a mushroom, or a mushroom being consumed by a reindeer. The shamans would place the mushrooms on the trees and let them dry out before they placed them in their sacks to sell to people. Mushrooms would be placed in stockings and hung near a fireplace for them to be dried out faster and consumed. Now people, listen up. I'm not saying go outside and eat the first Amanita muscaria mushroom you see. These mushrooms contain a lot of toxin. I left out the part where the shamans would consume reindeer urine because the ranger's bladder would filter out the toxins. But the shamans weren't the only ones who knew the power of the magic mushrooms. Ancient Egyptians depict this in their hieroglyphs. Mesoamerican cultures such as the Mayan and Aztec society consumed mushroom in their religious ceremonies. Aztecs referred to the mushroom as Tilnanocatl, which is flesh of the gods. The Rig Veda in Hindu belief describes drinking of soma to become immortal. There's even a reference to drinking urine, which, as I mentioned earlier with the Siberian shamans drinking the urine to bypass the toxins. The Sanskrit word for soma is distill, extract, sprinkle. In Hinduism, it is believed that the cow is a representative of the divine and natural benefits and should be protected at all costs. Cows are considered to be the embodiment of soma. Mushrooms grow from cow manure. I guess this is why people say holy cow or holy shit. There's a great theory that our consciousness expanded from our ancestors eating manure. Well, mushrooms that grew from manure. And this theory was popular from the book Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna. So the book pretty much goes like this. As the last ice age ended, the ice started to recede. Africa started to become greener with forest and vegetation. Once the forest and vegetation started to recede, it became harder to hunt. The ancestors to Homo erectus started to experiment with a new diet. Through this diet, they found a real-life version of the Limitless pill. If you haven't seen the movie, it's pretty much Bradley Cooper's character takes this pill, expands his consciousness, and rises to the top of the financial world. The difference is the Homo erectus Limitless pill came in the form of a mushroom and took them to the top of the food chain. They noticed that the fungus would grow out of manure of animals. Why they decided to eat mushrooms that grew from manure is still a mystery to me. But this accidental discovery benefited them. It improved their vision, which helped with hunting, increased the sex drive, which was good for reproduction and survival of the species. Through generation of taking mushrooms, the brain evolved to become more creative, and this is how language started to form. We became more proficient with explaining things to one another. Remember that this is just a theory, but it could have some credibility. There are cultures all over the world from different time periods who show mushrooms as a form of enlightenment through paintings. The oldest representation of mushrooms was discovered in a cave painting in Thessaly, Algeria. This painting dates back to over 9,000 years ago. The painting shows dotted lines that connect the mushroom to the person's head. Now this could be interpreted as this was the source of enlightenment. In Spain, you have the Selva Pascuala mural, which dates back 6,000 years and also shows mushrooms painted on the rocks. The Bradshaw rock art in Australia dates back to 10,000 years, also depicts figures with mushroom-shaped heads. Now I don't want to lose y'all with biology and chemistry. You were doing good following along. But to understand the psychedelic capabilities of mushrooms, we have to understand the molecular structure. Mushrooms contain a molecule called psilocybin. Psilocybin is a psychoactive drug. It's rapidly converted in the body to a compound known as psilocin. Psilocin activates serotonin receptors in the brain. Serotonin plays a vital role with mood, sex, appetite, and motivation. Psilocybin has the same makeup as N,N-dimethyltryptamine or DMT. The only difference is DMT doesn't have a hydroxide group. That difference is what makes psilocybin orally active versus dimethyltryptamine. This is why indigenous tribes in the Amazon brew ayahuasca. Now both have side effects such as hallucinations and time dilation. People on DMT trips have various experiences. Some seeing spiritual guides, traveling to other dimensions, seeing extraterrestrial and godlike beings that give them insight to their life. One guy experienced a trip where he experienced a whole nother life. He had a wife and kids and a happy life. When his trip was over, he returned to his original family and was depressed because he missed his family that he spent the last 12 years with. His trip was merely 15 minutes, but the DMT made him experience a time dilation that made it feel like he was in his trip for 12 years. With this in mind, could it be possible that Moses' vision of God in Exodus was just a psychedelic trip? In the book of Exodus, Moses comes across the burning bush and has a vision of God. God tells Moses his plan for the nation of Israel. This plan allows Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. But this could have happened to Moses while he was under the influence of DMT. It is believed that the bush that was burning was the acacia bush. Acacia bushes are native to Africa and they grow in abundance in the Sinai Peninsula. Native acacia trees are particularly high in DMT. Had this bush been burning, it would have certainly induced a powerful lengthy vision quest, during which he would experience vivid hallucinations, revelational thoughts, internal struggles, and connectivity with the divine. It's also noted that the fruit in the Garden of Eden was also a metaphor for a mushroom that granted enlightenment. Most religious scholars and historians still debate to this day on many of the events that happened throughout religious texts. It's been a long time game of telephone that's been translated from various languages for over centuries, but it's all been left to interpretation. But I would love to know how you all interpreted this. Was the Garden of Eden forbidden fruit really a mushroom? Was religion founded on the premise of our ancestors tripping on mushrooms and just telling stories? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And remember, be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
Tap into the frequency line.